Greetings. Frederick Riddle here with another new Christian news and views. This is episode 226, and this is Tuesday. Well, we're going to start out here with this one. I think this is the only one I'm going to talk about. Uh, Federal immigration raids planned for Chicago and other sanctuary cities in coming days after a weekend of warnings. That was sort of the headline, really. Whispers of imminent immigration of enforcement ricocheted across Chicago over the weekend as deportation efforts escalated in Boston, and the nation's borders are vowed a much broader surge in the coming days. You can expect action in most sanctuary cities across the country, Tom Homan told CNN's Jake Tapper, decrying as problem areas the next targets the sweeping nationwide deportation agenda that helped propel President Donald Trump to a second term, but Americans largely oppose. I want you to remember that statement. In tandem with those threats, more Democratic led cities also are bracing for the Trump administration to decide over the next day or two, the president said Sunday, where no where to further deploy National Guard troops or to crack down on violent crime, a purported problem. Remember that phrase too. The White House sometimes is linked with immigration. The Department of Homeland Security on Sunday blamed Boston Mayor Michelle Wu for sanctuary policies that not only attract and harbor criminals, but also place these public safety threats above the interests of law-abiding American citizens. Crossing the border or overstaying a visa and being undocumented in the United States generally is a civil infraction, not a criminal one. The Boston and planned Chicago operations are modeled after the June immigration sweep in Los Angeles that yielded legal backlash for the White House. They also follow a massive raid last week at a sprawling Hyundai manufacturing plant in southeast Chicago, Georgia. Excuse me. That, while not in a sanctuary city, Holman called a preview of what's to come. Cities push back against Trump threats in Washington, D.C., where more than 2,200 armed National Guard troops have roamed for weeks. Officials are suing the Trump administration, accusing the president of violating the Constitution and federal law by sending soldiers into the city without consent from local leaders. The lawsuit filed Thursday by D.C.'s Attorney General claims the troops, many from out of state, have been deputized by the U.S. Marshal's Office and are patrolling neighborhoods, conducting searches, and making arrests, despite federal laws that generally bar the military from acting as local police. Excuse me. The Trump administration has touted its efforts in the capital city, pointing to a sharp drop in violent crime since ramping up federal law enforcement last month. But critics argue the National Guard deployment is unnecessary and costly, with taxpayers footing an estimated $1 million a day, while troops take photos with tourists, pick up trash, and lay mulch. Trump has also repeatedly slammed nearby Baltimore for its crime, calling the city a hellhole and suggesting the National Guard could be deployed there next. We don't need an occupation, Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott told CNN's Manuel Raju on Sunday. Scott said he had explored all options when asked whether he would sign an order like Chicago's that tells local police not to cooperate with federal law enforcement should they be deployed. On Sunday evening, Trump told reporters Chicago was a very dangerous place, adding to the anticipation of troops there. He said he could solve Chicago very quickly, but stopped short of committing to deploy the Guard. 7 people were killed in Chicago from Friday evening through Sunday Preliminary police figures show at least 6 victims were men ages 21 to 42. Still, fatal shootings are down 34.2% this year through September 6th in the city compared with the same period in 2024, with 237 killed in 2025, mayor's office data shows. The Windy City has prepared for more than a week for looming National Guard deployments and immigration and customs enforcement raids, from the governor bracing for a court fight to parade planners postponing. Fears gripped Chicago over the weekend. On the Lower West Side of Chicago, the start of Mexican Independence Day celebrations typically marks a raucous weekend of parties and parades, drawing hundreds of thousands of attendees. While some crowds did gather Saturday, waving green, white, and red flags in the predominantly Latino Pilsen neighborhood, an undercurrent of caution persisted. As costume performers and children with baskets of treats paraded through the community, bright orange whistles swung from their necks, each one ready to cut through the music should federal immigration agents appear. Elsewhere, celebrations were muted. In Wakanda, a village northwest of Chicago, the annual Latino Heritage Festival was canceled due in part to immigration concerns in our area. The Wakanda Police Department said in a Friday special media post, one of the largest events of the Fiesta Patrias, the parade for the Mexican Independence Day in Waukegan, has been postponed for the first time in its 30-year history to November 1st from September 14th. The festival is celebrated every year in the suburb along Lake Michigan, just north of the Great Lakes Naval Base. The facility governor, J.B. Pritzker, said Trump is set to use as a command center for incoming immigration agents. Communities throughout the nation's third largest city are preparing for ICE presence by handing out flyers reminding families they have the right in the face of immigration enforcement to remain silent and don't have to consent to be searched or share their birthplace or citizenship status, among other rights. In Pilsen, neighbors gathered this weekend to celebrate Latino culture, choosing joy despite fear. I think now more than ever is when we need to demonstrate that we are united and we are a community, longtime resident Aracela Lucio said. So here's my opinion on it. First of all, I don't think I have this plan to cover this, but the earlier, well, let me go ahead and I'll do my opinion, then I may add something. This is a sad time we are living in. Never did I envision a time when governors and mayors would ignore the constitutional authority of the federal government. The federal government, on the other hand, has tried to be calm and non-confrontational. At the same time, these politicians are urging their own police to break the law and not cooperate with federal agents. Then they protest when troops are sent in as a result. I don't like the idea of troops policing communities, but at the same time, I love the results. In Washington, D.C., the crime rate, this is not mentioned, by the way, in that article, including murders, has dwindled since the troops arrived. That's not a coincidence. They were bragging about 237 for the year. How about none for the following week? I think it was a week and a half when that report came out. So that is not a coincidence. Some of the other things that I want to kind of touch on. Let me get to it here. Oh, here it is. When talking about the sweeping nationwide deportation agenda that helped propel President Donald Trump to a second term, what Americans largely oppose. Well, these are based on two different polls. The second one here is a poll that this article, this paper magazine, I don't remember what it is, or TV, I think it was TV, whatever poll they take. And being they're liberal, the polls are liberal. You can make a poll, you get the poll that you best like, and you can get a poll to, there's different ways they can manipulate these polling outfits, or even how the polling outfits ask the question. Just the way the question is asked can change the meaning of a poll, the effectiveness of it, the truthfulness of it. But the first poll here is not one that's easily changed, and that is the election. That is a poll. And people largely support him. That's what elected him. There's a large minority that don't like him, didn't want him, and they voted against him. But the larger one is those who support him and support the whole idea of deportation. Did we think it was going to get as bad as it has gotten as far as the way things are going out? Probably not. But when I look at it, I don't see the Trump administration doing something wrong. I see American cities, these so-called sanctuary cities. You don't find that in the Constitution. At least I have never found it in the Constitution. If it's there, you need to point it out to me. But I don't see it. That in itself is a city going against not Donald Trump, but going against the federal government, whether it's President Trump, Biden, whoever happens to be president. That's not, they're going against law. And there are mechanisms for doing that. Declaring yourself a sanctuary city is not one of the mechanisms that were taught. Another phrase that I wanted you to remember was the term a purported problem. No, it's not purported. It is a problem. Violent crime is a problem nationwide. Just recently in North Carolina, you had that young lady stabbed to death. Well, I think it was 14 different times. They showed the video parts of it, not showing the actual violence. That girl was doing nothing wrong. She simply was, I guess most people would say, in the wrong place at the wrong time. But that's why we say crime is a violent crime is a problem. Now, this person, as far as I know, he's not. I know he's got a long track record. I didn't really check out to see whether he's an illegal immigrant or maybe he's homegrown. Either way, he is a violent criminal and should be taken off the street. They did arrest him, but we'll see. Now they're reporting that he also has mental problems. And I just think to me, here we go again. Just because that person has mental, that does not excuse violent behavior. If they have violent behavior, then they need to be locked up somewhere. And then they say, well, they do, and then they get better, and then we release them. Actually, they don't get better. They learn how to go around the system. And then they return back to it when they get set free, then they return to their violent ways again. There's a much better way than just letting them go. And there's enough brains in this country, I think they could figure that out. So I wanted to just comment on both of those things. I don't think there was anything else I really wanted to comment on. I don't see it here. Well, I already mentioned the sharp drop in violent crime in the week or week and a half after the troops were injured. Another thing I'd like to point out is the National Guard does not have people in it from other states. The National Guard, when the National Guard is called in, they are people of that own state. They are part of this. They are residents of that state. And by the way, the National Guard is under the governor, but ultimately under the federal government. And so I don't see that there's anything being done wrong here. Now, the courts might see it differently, but right now, until they rule on it, that's where I stand. Uh, that this is just not the way. All this complaining and everything, they're victimizing themselves. We're the victim when they're actually the ones causing the problems. And usually, a lot of it starts at the top, folks. It's not the people down the streets. A lot of times, those people out on the streets are just doing what they're told to do by the people that are higher than them. So that is it for today. I hope you've enjoyed this. Let me, here we go. So what I want to do here is just and thank you for the opportunity to bring me into your home. I hope that you've enjoyed this. Remember, I always try to inform you, encourage you, and inspire you. That's my goal every time. And if you think that I've done that and you haven't yet subscribed, then I encourage you to subscribe. It encourages me, for one thing. That may not mean anything to you, but it does to me when I see people subscribe. But whatever. I'm glad that you allowed me in today to hear what I have to say. And maybe I've given you something to think about, to chew on, and decide exactly where do you stand on all this. I come from a Christian conservative viewpoint, and I think most of those of you who are watching me are probably in that same viewpoint. So I would be interested in hearing what each and every one of you have to say. We have a comment section. Take advantage of it. And I will read them. And if necessary, they could actually end up on this podcast. You have a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode.